Yes, I've been talking to myself.
Oh no.
Oh no. Hi everyone and welcome. We have 3 talks in this session. Uh, One full-length talk and 2 lightning talks. Our first talk is JessHuang of the U.S. Census Bureau. And before I turn it over to her, let me just say that I'm a little bit excited for this talk because Jess has an interesting perspective that's different from a lot of the talks that we've seen so far, because she's not the person who does the seasonal adjustment. She is an analyst. So kind of a different side of what we often see. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to her and let her do her thing.
Appreciate it. So hi everyone. My name is Jess, and I'd love to share with you some of the work we've done using seasonal adjustment for data review. This will be a case study on the survey called the Quarterly Survey of Plant Capacity Utilization. One disclaimer: the opinions and conclusions expressed here are those of me and not the entire Census Bureau. I thought we'd start with an introduction to what the QPC is and lay some groundwork for why I'm working on this project, then a research question and proposal, and 4 case studies that explore that question and try to find evidence for that proposal, and finally a summary of the case studies and a conclusion and next steps. So just to start, is this survey that we're looking at? Well, the QPC is the only source of quarterly statistics on U.S. industrial plant capacity, and this is helpful for the Federal Reserve Board, the Defense Logistics Agency, and the Census Bureau. And one way that the QPC tries to measure industrial plant capacity is this rate called capacity utilization rates. So you can imagine the denominator of this rate is a measurement of capacity, that is, for a manufacturing plant. What is the market value of full production capacity, assuming full availability of labor, materials, utilities, and normal, sustainable, realistic operational conditions? So that is a measurement of capacity, and we're looking at utilization rate. So the numerator is the market value of actual, and the rate is actual production divided by capacity. So in this graph here, we're plotting capacity utilization rate over time, specifically for the industry of metalwork machinery manufacturing. And you could see over time that these rates roughly range between 60 and 80%, suggesting that these industries operate at 60 to 80% utilization of what they could possibly manufacture in normal conditions. And there are a lot of reasons why this number isn't 100%. Some of which our survey respondents will check off on a survey questionnaire. So some of those reasons are insufficient orders, insufficient supply of materials, insufficient supply of local labor force, and for the topic of today's presentation, seasonal operations. And I just want to draw your attention to this graph one more time. I put a blue bar at the 2020 Q1, showing what visually appears to me as a difference in seasonal, difference in general trends of these rates, which is something that analysts are interested in explaining and could possibly be explained by some of these checkbox items about orders, materials, labor force, and things like this. So now that we have some foundation for what the QPC is, I'd love to start explaining some timeline for this project that I've been working on. And it starts in 2023 when the QPC team formally developed some seasonal models for industries that seem to demonstrate seasonal trends. An example of such an industry is shown in the graph on the right. In concrete manufacturing, we again visualize rate over time, and you can see there are these dips in Q1 each year, which suggests to me that there's some seasonal trend where in Q1 we expect seasonality to contribute to a dip in rates, which is kind of consistent with what we know about concrete manufacturing, where concrete is least popular to be laid in wintertime, and a decrease in orders may result in a decrease in capacity utilization rate for these manufacturing establishments. So this is a motivating example for an industry that demonstrates seasonality, and with the formalization of seasonal models, there are a lot of different benefits that we can explore as analysts. And the focus of this presentation is how can we use these seasonal models to improve data review, where data review is this period before data dissemination, where we try to investigate suspicious data entry and also understand the underlying changes that drive differences in rates and differences in each industry that we review. So this slide tries to compare and contrast the traditional data review with the data review that we are proposing that incorporates seasonal adjustment. So to start, traditional data review looks like for each industry examining quarter-to-quarter rate changes, and for industries that demonstrate large changes, we dive deeper into individual establishment level responses to try to explain those changes or look at suspicious data. And while this traditional data review has served us well and is pretty robust, all data review methods have their blind spots. In particular, for this example, with respect to seasonal models, we know that traditional data review can suffer from excessive time spent on false positives. That is, industries that are flagged for deeper review that actually don't need a deeper dive because their change in rates can largely be explained by seasonality. Another blind spot of traditional data review is oversight of false negatives. That is, cases where an industry doesn't demonstrate a large change, isn't flagged for a deeper dive, but actually has a lot going on under the surface, like seasonal trends and non-seasonal drivers that manifest as large changes in rates when we actually break down seasonal versus non-seasonal changes. So in order to address these blind spots, our proposed data review is very similar, but instead of looking at quarter-to-quarter unadjusted rate changes, we look at quarter-to-quarter adjusted rate changes and flag industries if and only if they demonstrate large adjusted rate changes. And my claim, and what I hope to show in this presentation, is this proposed data review method reduces false positives, uncovers some false negatives, upholds some of the good behavior that we see in traditional data review, and generally aligns with best statistical practice and expedites our clarity on seasonality, this thing that we're interested in generally, to understand the bigger picture of rate changes. So hopefully the research question and the proposal is clear. Now I think we can start and dive into some of these case studies. So we'll start with a potential false positive case. I'll demonstrate this with concrete manufacturing. I've plotted the rates of concrete manufacturing over time based on public data, and we'll notice this large decline from Q4 to Q1, which would be flagged by traditional data review for a deeper dive. I claim that this is unnecessary and a false positive. If we look a little bit deeper and then step into this hypothetical world where we use the proposed data review with seasonal adjustment, I can assign some values to seasonal adjustment ratio over time so that Q4 contributes to a 10% increase in rates and Q1 contributes to a 10% decrease in rates. And I can remove those seasonal effects by dividing by these ratios and pulling Q4 down and Q1 up, such that the resulting adjusted rate change is no longer large enough to be flagged by the proposed data review and is correctly not flagged as a true negative case. So in summary, concrete manufacturing gives us this hypothetical example of a false positive in traditional data review, where extra time is spent on trying to investigate a large change in a series that is mostly explained away by seasonality and is successfully not flagged as a true negative by the proposed data review. So there's a case of a change between traditional and proposed data review. And we can also look at the flip side of this change, the false negative case in traditional data review, which I'll demonstrate with metalwork machinery manufacturing. Again, I dove into public data to plot rates over time, and you'll notice very little change in rates, which would not be flagged by the traditional data review, which I claim is an oversight. If I step into the hypothetical world of the proposed data review, I can assign some seasonal adjustment ratios over time so that Q4 contributes to a 10% decline in rates, Q1 contributes to a 10% increase in rates, and I can remove those seasonal effects by dividing by these ratios, increasing Q4 rates a little, decreasing Q1 rates a little, and we see how now the adjusted rates suggest a large change that would be flagged by the proposed data review. And this is helpful because this industry, one, has seasonal effects, and two, has a large change in rates due to non-seasonal effects that are worth investigating and flagging in a deep dive. So this has been an example of a false negative case by the traditional data review that is corrected for by the proposed data review. Now moving on, instead of contrasting the two data review methods, I'd like to emphasize how the proposed data review doesn't break some of the great behavior that we observe in traditional data review. So namely, I'll demonstrate the true positive case with household appliance manufacturing. Start with public data, I plot rate over time, and see a large change in rates that would be flagged for deeper dive by traditional data review, which is great. I can assign some hypothetical seasonality numbers corresponding to a 10% decline in Q4 and a 10% increase in Q1. I can remove these effects, slightly increasing Q4 values and decreasing Q1 values, and we see that the adjusted rates still demonstrate a large change. So the proposed data review would also flag this industry for a deeper dive, which is the behavior that we want, that is sustained by the proposed data review. The final case study I'd like to go over is the true negative case, which I'll demonstrate with aerospace product and parts manufacturing. Jumping into public data, we can plot rate over time and see little change in unadjusted rates. So this would not be flagged for deeper review by the traditional data review method. We can hypothesize some seasonality, in this case, seasonal adjustment ratio over time of 1, because we're positing that this industry doesn't have any seasonality. And when we remove that lack of seasonal effects, the rates stay exactly the same. And we still observe little change in rates. So this case would be successfully not flagged by the proposed data review, which is great and consistent with the behavior we want of not flagging industries that don't demonstrate seasonal or non-seasonal changes. Okay, so just a little summary of the 4 case studies that we've gone through. So this matrix tries to demonstrate on the left side the behavior of the traditional data review and before seasonal adjustment, and then on the right side, the behavior of the proposed data review with seasonal adjustment. So to go over this and to summarize some of those case studies, we can go through this first line and imagine if the traditional data review flags an industry for deep dive. That is sometimes a good thing, as demonstrated in the case of household appliances, which is a behavior that is mimicked by the proposed data review. Sometimes it is also a bad thing in the case of concrete, where analysts spend excessive time diving deep into an industry that shouldn't be flagged because the majority of rate change can be explained by seasonality, which is corrected for as a true negative with the proposed data review. And moving on to the second row here, sometimes the traditional data review will not flag an industry for a deeper dive, which in this first box represents an oversight where there's actually a lot going on and seasonal and non-seasonal. and the industry should be flagged for deeper dive, which is corrected for by the proposed data review. And sometimes the traditional data review not flagging industry for deeper dive is the intended behavior. Case like aerospace product and parts, and this behavior is mimicked by the proposed data review. So overall, I hope I've showed that data review with seasonal adjustment can enable more targeted data review with fewer false positives and fewer false negatives, and this ultimately helps us improve the data quality of the product we show and better understand trends in the product that we're showing. Notably, data review is not without its blind spots, and I've highlighted mostly the non-blind spot pieces in this presentation, but I'd be very happy to talk about continual blind spots going forward. And I'm hoping that similar methods like the case studies shown here can be used for other explanatory surveys newly considering seasonal models and reaping the benefits of having those around. And there's still more work to be done. Notably, our seasonal models require continual monitoring to make sure that they accurately reflect industry trends. Yeah, so lots of helpful, smart, thoughtful people helped us with this project. Some of them are shown here. Yeah, and I wonder if folks have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Jess. We do have a couple of minutes if anyone has a question.
It's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, go for it.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun seeing different perspectives on seasonal adjustment. I'm like seeing folks creating new theory and then using code and making models and like applying models. So it's been cool. Thank you for organizing and gathering us.
It's our favorite part of every 2 years. David, you're here yet?